to today's webinar, Hec-1, Hec-2, Hec-22, InfoDrainage, Inlets Gone Wild. This webinar is brought to you by Graitec. My name is Misty Scott, and I am pleased to be your moderator today. As a reminder, you can find a schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar. Before we dive in, we'd love to learn more about how we can best support you and your business. So if you could take a moment to answer the poll questions on the right-hand side of your screen, it would help us learn more how we can best serve you. All right, I'd also like to introduce our expert today. Kenneth Driscoll is an implementation consultant at Graitec with over 20 years of experience specializing in civil infrastructure, surveying, and Autodesk solution. Ken brings deep expertise in civil 3D, hydrology, GIS, stormwater management, and helping firms streamline their workflows and deliver impactful engineering projects. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for joining us today. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, good evening, and good afternoon in some places, since we are a global company. So today, just to get started, this is not the typical webcast that we traditionally do, but just to get started, again, Misty talked about, who I am, no big deal, but who this webcast is for. So the first thing is those, and I've looked at the vast amount of resources that we have that are watching this webcast in terms of civil engineers, planners, designers, stormwater management, and then also some architects that were on the list. But as it is, I'm going to try to give you a good variety of the things that you have now and that you don't have, and things that you may be coming with Civil 3D. So the first part is, again, this is about Hec-22 inlets, and not Hec-1 and not Hec-2, but Hec-22. And we all know the differences between what the Army Corps engineers use and what we want to use in terms of roadway pavement. So Hec-22 is where we're at. And for the most part, with Civil 3D, you have some tools that you currently should be using right now. And for those tools, which they're not listed here on this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about some Hec-22 analysis. But you have a analyzing and sizing of gravity networks that's in Civil 3D. So I'm going to show that before I get to the InfoWorks, the InfoDrainage. So, but as far as what we're going to look at, what this is for today is transportation engineers, designers, responsible for sizing Hec-22 and that methodology in terms of inlets. And then for stormwater modelers who on the transportation side, and some on the site level side. And then also anyone who's looking for a deeper dive into how this inlet analysis is handled in InfoDrainage. And now, again, I mentioned the idea of Civil 3D and the analysis for Hec-22. So we're going to just briefly look at that, and then we'll move forward. But also, there are drainage designers who are tired of spreadsheets. So as we move on, based upon who it's for in the specific workflows. So those workflows, and if we come back, let's just make sure everything is being shared here. So I'm just going to stop that for a second because I looked over and it stopped sharing. So we'll share that and see if that comes back up. And I'll give it a second here. And I'll make sure everything is sharing. And Missy, let me know if
Yep, no, it's on there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just want to make sure because I can't see it. So, but not a big deal. And Missy will let me know. It's wonderful to have partners.
But I got you covered.
anyone looking for a deeper dive. So again, this idea of who this is for, and then the workflow, size and inlets, transportation for site level, and then anyone looking for a deeper dive. And then this drainage design idea, it's things that we run into. Timelines are always tight, new efficiencies that can be given. So there's always these add-ons to Civil 3D and then specific workflows with these different tools that we want to be able to utilize. And then work in between the multiple data sources. So GIS, CAD, Esri, also aerial photography. We also have Mr. SID files. We also have XML. So just the multiple data sources that we want to be able to utilize. And then some of our design tools, calculators and spreadsheets that are suboptimal, but we will look at some of the flexibility in terms of calculators and spreadsheets. And then project rework, slow return, turnaround periods for stakeholders. And again, we all are familiar. Stakeholders, they don't care about what software we're using. They care about timelines, getting things done, action items. So we want to be cognizant of that fact. And again, we got these ideas of these hydraulic calculators, plan and profiles, spreadsheets, of course. And then whether it's paper or digital. And then we talk from this idea of alignment to BIM. And BIM is not always about this idea of architectural or Revit. It's about this idea of information modeling as we build the models within Civil 3D or in the other applications as they come together. What flexibility in terms of interoperability does that bring to the table? And then public engagement materials, things like that for stakeholder engagement. And over the years, we've looked at this idea of this kind of industry shift from sustainable to low impact to water sensitive to best management practices to blue-green infrastructure. And it used to be just stormwater. But now we have all these complex and all these acronyms that we want to be able to identify and adopt. And of course, those will overlay with access management and things like that as we manage projects. So streamline workflows, tedious tasks we want to be able to remove. And then also within InfoDrainage, you have this idea of working with multiple templates that you can use per county. So you don't have to repeatedly create these templates to work on a specific project based upon the parameters that it needs. And then being able to validate your design and work, we'll look at that with InfoDrainage also. And as an example, just some of the flexibility in terms of what you can do with InfoDrainage, in terms of creating a template. And based upon that template, and within that template, we can create specific stormwater controls. And then push those out, look at specific inlets, outfalls. And then we also have advanced tools to be able to utilize that. But if I just right click on the structure, I can remove that and create a pond. Pretty straightforward. So these are just some of the things we're going to look at as we look at the actual product. And then efficiency in terms of my system that I'm laying out. So my spatial layout and design that comes specifically from Civil 3D can bring it straight from Civil 3D straight into InfoDrainage, spatial layout and design editing tools from one product right into the other. The template detail structure, and then a reduction and rework in terms of editing and modifying and pushing data from InfoDrainage back into Civil 3D. So we'll take a look at some of those things also. But just as an example, for the most part, as an example, one of the things we want to be able to do in terms of flexibility, and when I say flexibility, the ideal of being able to move around with your inlets or your detention pond or your catchment area from Civil 3D into InfoDrainage and then outside of that also. So it's just some simple things that we want to be able to address in reference to Civil 3D. And from that, we will see some of the advantages and some of the tools that we're able to utilize that are going to be great for what you need to reference. So in InfoDrainage, once we get there, there's 3 types of junctions. Inlets, they're tied to manholes, and they also have tied to simple junctions. So inlets, manholes, we have 3 different types of junctions. Nowhere on there where you see inlet. All those are based upon you selecting on the junction and then going to the inlet tab. So it's a little bit different, but a lot more in terms of where you want to start with your restrictions. So for instance, now that we have on the Inlets tab, the Hec-22, it's a drainage design and it's published in the, well, let me see how well my memory is. The Federal and Highway Administration Design Manual. And I think it's like chapter 4, where they start out with roadway pavement. So some simple things, but there are benefits. So from that, from those, you're able to size inlets. You have a specific calculator that does hydraulic analysis. And then also you have bypass links that you can utilize, similar to what you've done in the old product like storm and sanitary analysis. We also have the ability to increase project efficiency with, again, object templates. We'll look at that, and Civil 3D parts and family matching. We'll also take a look at that. And typically, not to PowerPoint you to death, these are some of the benefits why you would choose InfoDrainage. Clearly, you already have storm and sanitary analysis. Clearly, you already have the hydroflow extensions. But if you look at the hydraulic modeling in terms of drainage analysis, hydrology, drafting aids and the interoperability between products, and then drainage standards validation, and then also this idea of, well, what does the user interface look like? Is it going to be something traditional that you've used in the past? So if you look on the right-hand side there, clearly you can see storm and sanitary analysis has some of those things, but InfoDrainage has most of those things. And now even the menus and toolbars are going to be not only ribbon-based, but some of the traditional menus that you have. So you have the tree-like structure, similar to the Prospector tab in Civil 3D, and then you have also the tool space with tools. So just some things you want to be able to look at, and anyone who needs this information, and again, I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death. Anyone that needs that information, I'll be able to give you that information. So just going to change real quick in terms of my screen. So again, I made reference to this ideal of, and once this comes up, I'll be able to move on. But
you got it.
As I look here, this is just a traditional highway system. And if you look at this system, I've got Civil 3D objects. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. So we'll turn off the map. So clearly I have a coordinate system in here. And I got some storm and structures. So one of the things that you should be aware of in reference to Civil 3D is on the Analyze tab. You have your 3 hydroflow extensions. And with your hydroflow extensions, the line storm source allows you to work with storm sewer design. That storm sewer design, if you're using hydroflow extensions, it works with steady flow, kinematic wave, not hydrodynamic. Biggest difference between the hydrodynamic comes from storm and sanitary analysis, which is on a different swim engine. But the thing about SSA, storm and sanitary analysis, and also the hydroflow extensions, they're a bit outdated. And the newer technology and the newer functionality in terms of the XP swim engine that you want to be able to EPA that you want to be able to utilize. It's in some of the newer products, and InfoDrainage just happens to be one. But we are still on the ideal of this idea of inlets. So not only do you have the hydroflow extensions, you have storm and sanitary analysis, and then you have this analyze gravity network. And if I pick on it, and I only have one network here, so if I right click, it gives me this roadway drainage. We are not going to InfoDrainage yet. We just want to clear this up before we get to InfoDrainage. Just in case you've been using this and you didn't know where this was. So as this populates, this is this analyze gravity network. So this allows me to analyze and size a gravity pipe network. This is based upon the ability to compute your energy grade line and your hydraulic grade line according to your Hec-22 standards. We talked about where that manual is, and it's in the help menu, but where that manual is. But what you have is you have this ability to analyze the network, review the results. Based upon those results, you can review those results graphically, and you can review them in a CSV file. And then also, when you apply the results, it updates your pipe network. So there's three types. You can resize pipes, you can reset inverts, and then also compute energy in HGL and EGL. So with those three, clearly they make a reference to what they say they are in terms of resizing pipes or resizing inverts. It resizes the pipes after it analyzes the flow through the pipes. And then it resizes those based upon that to accommodate whatever that flow is. And then computing the energy grade line using this makes reference to when the system is in its normal state in terms of whether it's being surcharged or whether it's flooded. And then the inlet analysis is just really, it analyzes the capacity of that inlet, gives you a report. That's what this product does, this tool. And there's some workflows that makes reference to it, but typically you create that roadway geometry, and then you set up your inlets, perform an analysis. Pretty straightforward. Create your pipe network, same thing. You have the ability to select structures, outfalls, tailwind condition, network details, gives you nice structures. You have the ability to come in here and change in terms of what the shape and type of junction or structure that is. Also, you can map structure parameters. If I go back, you also have the ability to select which ones you want to choose in terms of running the analysis. And then also, if you wanted to create an intensity table, you can create, save, and return from that. So pretty straightforward. That's where you have it. Now, what is not pretty straightforward is if I pick on this structure and right click on this structure and I go to structure properties, it says, one, This is a structure. And it has some hydraulic properties, energy grade line, known capacity flow that you can in a structure, and then the parameters and properties of this structure. Pretty straightforward. What if I wanted an inlet? So in the case that you wanted this to be a inlet, now that would be a little bit different because this is a junction, but if I came in and said, I want this to be a grade inlet or curb inlet or combination inlet, I can come in here and say grade inlet. Now we can come in and see that we have these gutter details. Well, how does it run the analysis in reference to the inlet from your gutter parameters? So you got data in reference to that. Pretty straightforward. Don't know if everyone has seen this, but it is in here. And if you say on grade or on SAG, pretty straightforward. And then if you came in and if you selected combination, then it's going to give you the combination properties. So that's pretty straightforward, straight out of the box from Civil 3D. Now, again, we could push this pipe network to HydroFlow storm source. But HydroFlow storm source doesn't have the engine and capacity to analyze and compute the design that we are making reference to. So that's where we're talking about going to InfoDrainage. Well, how do we get this from Civil 3D into InfoDrainage? If you're using 2024, 2025, reference to Civil 3D, there is a Innovize tab that you have here. And based upon this Innovize tab, you have this import and export for your drainage. So your pipe networks. And there's one other thing that I wanted to note. You can see I'm structure 70, 71, all the way to 72. Just something really quick before this loses my mind. If somebody wanted me to do a quick profile of from 70 to 72 of these inlets of this structure, I would just use Project Explorer. And the reason I'm going to use that, and it's going to come up in a second, Project Explorer. I'll come right here. It's just a super modified interface that allows you to work with Civil 3D objects. I have a pipe network. From that pipe network, I can go in and say specifically a specific structure. And if I pick this little arrow, I'll go down all the way to structure 73. From structure 73, I want to go to structure 71. I'll pick right here. And again, I just want to visually see this. There it is. It's that simple. Project Explorer. And the reason I am making reference to some of these things outside of this idea of these inlets is because you all are using Civil 3D right now, and I want you to be successful in terms of using this product in terms of what it has, straight out of the box. Okay, so getting this from Civil 3D to InfoDrainage on the Innovize tab. Export to InfoDrainage. When I select this export to InfoDrainage, it's going to prompt me to export a file. If I go select, and I want to be cognizant of the fact that we are online, so let me let it catch up. And then on my desktop, I can export out this DWG file and this drainage network or storm network to a IDX file, IDDX file. Pretty straightforward. And here it is right here. The name of my drawing is transportation. I can import it, export it out, and it runs through the process. And as an example, I'll select next. It looks for me to export it out, the roll weight, and then also if I wanted to push out the surface too. Okay, just making reference to, So if I want to push out that surface too, and then I'll select next, and then it looks at that data, and it says, well, do you want to specify part mapping for your export? And once I specify the part mapping and there's a lot of structures in here. Once I want to export this out, and then I say finish. The thing that I wanted to express to you all is that you could create this part mapping and save it. You can populate this by selecting this, but you can create your own template for new mappings and you can save it, and then you can use this anytime you want. Okay, that's our Civil 3D portion. So generally speaking, that's information in reference to Civil 3D straight out of the box. Clearly, we want to make reference to InfoDrainage, and that's coming. So any question that you have, I'll be able to address. I'm going to try to leave time at the end so we can address any question. Anything that you want to be able to do, I'm going to try address in reference to information that I can get to you. So InfoDrainage. So the first thing we want to be able to do, and let's see if this will just come right over here. It makes it simple when I can just drag and move a screen from one monitor to another. So the idea of the interface with InfoDrainage. On the left-hand side, you can see this tree view that looks similar to the tool space with our prospector and settings tab in Civil 3D. A nice transition to being able to work with InfoDrainage objects and objects that you want to bring in to InfoDrainage. On the right-hand side, you have this toolbox, similar to the toolbox. We have inflows, we have junctions, we have stormwater controls, and we got connections. Right here, just as an example, there is no inlet that you will see here. So up at the top, we have the big ribbon similar to Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and clearly Civil 3D. So the efficiency and usage in terms of the interface, pretty straightforward. As you can see, background data from surface, GIS data, CAD data, aerial imagery, also inflows, XML files, even the old microdrainage, its predecessor way back. But also if you want to bring in data from CAD. One of the things that is new in InfoDrainage 2025 is the idea of using land usage and soil types. You also have inflows, junctions, and from text or from GIS. But let's open up. Same process. We'll just go to our folder here and we'll open up this file. And just as an example, look, we created a transportation file. And let's open it up and see what we get. And if you've looked at that road, that highway, it's a pretty large highway. It's got some things in it, but we'll take a look at it in InfoDrainage, which is just populated, pretty straightforward. So we got catchments. Well, where do these catchments come from? These catchments come from Civil 3D. Yes, we could have talked about catchments in Civil 3D, but I only have so much time. So The same catchment that you can use, and there's some new catchment functionality in Civil 3D 2025 that you can utilize. But as I said in 2025.5, you have this land usage that you can use now. And then you have also this ideal of preliminary sizing and dynamic sizing. You have a runoff with runoff coefficients and calculators with your catchment area. And if I just picked on this, it gives me options for my land usage. And then overland slope and float slopes, pretty straightforward. But then also in terms of time of concentration. Now, clearly the SCS, green roof, SP swim, we have those options also. And then a modified rational. And then we have pollutant. And then we have on the advanced tab where we can do runoff path and catchment slope. And then rainwater tanks if we wanted to. So this is my catchment area. So I'm not going to save that, but that's my catchment. So that's number one. From Civil 3D, catchments from Civil 3D come straight into InfoDrainage. If I zoom in, if I double click on the structure, now it gives me my information about my structure. It's a manhole. Well, what is one of the critical things of knowing where the manhole is in reference to my coordinate system that's in Civil 3D? So we have my easting and northing. And then we also have elevations that come from the surface from Civil 3D into InfoDrainage. We also have a part family. Well, what is that part family? Well, the same part family that I created in Civil 3D. And now it comes straight into InfoDrainage. So we got this ideal of this roadway. We got pipe networks. We got sub-catchment areas. And then I talked about the ideal that with InfoDrainage, under, well, we got a lot of things, but InfoDrainage under your junctions, there's no inlets. The inlets come from the structure, so it's a subset of the structure. So if I come in and select inlets, now we have the ability to select on our inlets. Now, from this, if we go back, let's see. From our inlets, we have the ability now to do multiple capacity types. And in our capacity types, we have low, high, we have rated by flow, and then we also have Hec-22. And then each one of these in reference to specifically the low high, that is the low high functionality allows the flow rates for your upper limit and your lower limit of the bypass, something outside of the limits of your inlet. So when you create a bypass, water that passes beyond the inlets, that leaves values entering from your stormwater control or your junction. That is what you typically will find when you use your low high flow. Now, specifically, if you start and say rated by flow, that's a little bit different also. Now you got a spreadsheet. Now you have a spreadsheet. You have a flow increment, and then you have the ability to import. So you can put in a spreadsheet flow increments, and then you also can import Well, what type of import? Well, a CSV file or a text file that you want to be able to pull in. And then clearly you can add other inlets. And then we have, so from no restriction to low, high flow to rated by flow to Hec-22, which is our topic of discussion. Hec-22. Now from this Hec-22, there's a little bit that's involved with your Hec-22. So we want these Hec-22 inlets to be compliant with whatever our specified use of our gutter and our inlets are. So that's the first thing. The beauty of this is you have this sizing calculator. So we just have to put in a few parameters in reference to our inlet. So remember in Civil 3D, I made this reference to longitudinal slope, roll cross-section, gutter slope, and gutter width. Here are those same parameters. For those same parameters, that's how it's calculating using that run analysis in the Civil 3D product. And as you can see, this inlet, it shows me, well, what is this connected to? It's connected to my catchment 40. So it's giving me all the information of these connected items in reference to that came from Civil 3D. And then you also have outlets. So from this simple junction, and I'm not going to save anything because we got some things here, but from this catchment, just really quick, so we can see the same thing that I did with Civil 3D. If I come down and select add a flow rate, I can pick my structure from here all the way to here. And then right click and select show profile. There it is. That's how simple it is to create a profile in InfoDrainage. Pretty straightforward. Okay. If I zoom back, if I pick on and double click on my structure, and if I go to my inlets, again, put in some parameters for my inlets, and then based upon my gutter, and even if I came in here and put this at 0, and I said size inlets, it's going to say data. Oh, we got to save this data. That's fine. If I come in here and say size inlets, it's going to bring up this table, a reference to sizing inlets. So I'm going to go back for a second, change this Manny's coefficient back. I'm going to select apply. On the other side, it's saying to me, okay, basically save this data. So I'm going to go back to inlets. So also on my gutter, and then on my inlet, we also have parameters for my inlet. So there's 4 different types. There's grate, curve, there's combination, and then there's slotted. And we all are familiar with those things, but they have these parameters for those things also. And I put in these parameters. So as an example, depending on the time, maybe I'll just create one from scratch. But we have some parameters in terms of the grade length, grade width, curb length, also the height, the grade type, whether it's a throat, horizontal, incline, vertical, depression, clog, how much and how efficient this inlet is running. So if it's clogged at 50, that's not very efficient, right? But we can put in certain parameters. And then once we have those parameters for our inlet, we can select size inlet. And then once I select that size inlet, it says, okay, whoa. It says, well, this is your gutter spread. This is your bypass spread. This is your approach. And this is how much is captured. And then this is our bypass flow. And it says during the approach, we have 2.364, 1.56 is captured, 0.838 is bypassed within the gutter. That is the flow. In the spread for our gutter, we have 8.1 feet out and bypass 5.5 feet. So it gives you these parameters. And let's just say, that's my 10-year return. We could come in and change our return period. Our return period, of course, is going to have more flow into our inlet. So we have some multiple runoff types. So we can do user plan data, or we can do user, or we can use, now for using dynamic. Dynamic makes reference to after you run an analysis, then that dynamic won't be grayed out. But what if I come into this and I say, well, I'm working in this county and I have this IDF table? Well, you can import an IDF table. You can say, I want to create one from a library. Or, what is that? Noah. So if I pick on that, I can import, I can right click, I can import a CVS file right into this table IDF and save it as my IDF curve. So a lot of flexibility in reference to maybe current data that you have, or if you want to just create a new one from scratch. I dread tables and spreadsheets, but flexibility. If we have old CSV files and text files, we can import those in, save those out. So 3 types of junctions. We got different capacity types. 4 types of inlets. Most of the time that I've used these is, let's say, for instance, if you're looking for some really nice structure details for DOT. Florida DOT has some really nice ones, especially a Hec-22 inlet. I think it's the F.1. Yeah, F.1. F. Inlet 1. And it's like a 7-foot, but it's really nice, and it's scaled and it's modeled to the exact scale. So if you're looking for some great inlets, that would be a great place to look. Florida DOT. It's a public template. So I'm doing flow on your gutter, your inlet. As you change these things, let's say, let's make this 7 feet. When I pick on that, automatically it says to me, what? It gives me this little icon. And if I hold my curve, it says grade length can't be greater. So I'll come back. So let's say we want this at 3.5. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. This has tools that will specify to you what the issue is and how to resolve it. Okay, these what if scenarios. So it says my grade length can't be greater than my curve length. Okay, I'm just doing some troubleshooting. Let's say 3.9. Yeah, I'm just going some troubleshooting. Still same thing. How about 4.1? Uh-oh. Now we have an issue. Okay, so some really nice tools, and that's with everything in InfoDrainage. Everything in InfoDrainage. I said 2 by 2. Pretty straightforward. And I'm not going to save any of these things, but if you wanted to, you can export these results out to a CSV file. We'll just call it result. I'm going to come right back here, just as an example. Double pick on this. No, I don't. I want to open this. There's my results. It's a CSV file. Pretty straightforward. Copy, paste. Well, I'm doing that to one, but let's say you have 50. Let's keep in mind what's going on here, the big picture. Okay, so from that, not a big deal. Not going to save any of that. So the ideal in terms of these Hec-22 inlets, this is just getting started in terms of what we want to be able to do. Okay, so on the other side, well, let's say, for instance, if I right click on this, if I pick on it and right click, I can add connections. So what kind of connection do I want to add? Well, maybe a bypass link. So I could add a bypass link. And let's, as a quick example, I'm going to say rectangle channel. It says, do you want to do a pipe or do you want to do a new? So if I pick new and just pick here and then scroll down and then pick here and say right into that inlet, it says, this is my rectangular channel now. And it shows the direction of flow. Well, so now if I double pick on my structure and go to inlets, now we can see an inlet. What if I wanted to add in? I can add in an inlet that goes into my, well, what is this inlet? Well, this could be my street gutter. And where is that going from? So we can add that in, and basically it will show my bypass. So it's just some different things you want to be able to do in terms of creating that. Now, as an example, because it's so CAD based, if I pick on this and double pick on it, it's giving me the parameters. It's saying, whoa, this is the gutter channel. It has a 0.035 slope and it has a height. Pretty straightforward. And it's showing me all my trapezoidal channels, but the one specifically. Pretty straightforward. Now, if I just pick on that and say delete, then I just delete it. So a lot of CAD functionality implemented into InfoDrainage. A lot of CAD functionality into InfoDrainage. And from this, if I picked on my preliminary sizing, I can say size inlets. It takes me right back here to sizing inlets. So a couple different ones. If I say analysis, I can run analysis on clash detection. If I pick on results, after running analysis, we can get all type of results. So just as an example. So real quick for preliminary sizing. If I came in here and said, okay, well, network design wizard, it comes up with this dialog box. It says, whoa, here's your pipe network. This is your westbound. Do you want to add? You can select the flow path that you want to design in terms of analysis. So you can pick specific ones if you wanted to. I'm going to cancel that. Not a big deal. Also, let's see. On the size inlets, so we on the build tab, we also have, well, what about these tables? Well, if I come in and select tables, in terms of reporting and actual data that you want to be able to see, Well, I want to see stormwater controls. So I'll expand that. Stormwater controls. I'm on the stormwater controls tab as an example. And once this comes up, let's make sure. Load. And this is just an example of being able to, again, access the data. If once this catches up. So all my inflows, and then all my catchment areas, and then my time and concentration. So if I wanted to pick on that, all of these are in tables. All that data, all the content in tables. If I come to junctions, it's going to take a second to populate. And if I come to inlets, my Hec-22 inlets, I'll just pick on that. And then it populates everything that's in my Hec-22 inlet type and tables information. Pretty straightforward. And I'm being cognizant of the time. Also, because we created some things here. If you come to File and you come to Object Templates, from this object template, I can come in and say from my stormwater controls. Or I can say with my junctions. Here's my structure 91. Also, if I right click, I can add a new junction. As an example, then it says, well, what would my new manhole be like? If I came in here to my stormwater control, I can right click, add a pond, add a swell, add an infiltration. So pretty flexible tools in reference to creating templates. So we can do IDX table, IDF table. We can do stormwater controls table. What about printing? So I'll come up here and I'll say File and I'll say Print. Yikes. Well, it says, okay, these are all the things that you have. So under junctions, under inlets, that's one thing that I want to see. What about my manhole schedule? I want to see that. And then my analysis criteria. How about some rainfall data? I just say update. And come on. And update. Current selection options results and no pages to display. Well, why does that happen? Because I don't have any phases denoted. it. And this is my roll rate drainage. So now if I come here and select update, it says, wait a minute, you got a lot of stuff in this project that we need to get out into a report. And here it is. And it's just that straightforward. And when you come all the way down and scroll all the way down, you got inlets and preliminary sizing, things like that. And per inlet, it gives me my inlet type, my inflows, every piece of data, all my structures. Everything that I've denoted that I want to see over here is populated over here in my report. I said I don't like spreadsheets. So calculations, any of those things, rainfall events, any of those things, flow paths, you can put those in a report. So I know we are getting close. Again, there's a lot of content, a lot of information in a short period of time, but based upon the idea of what we were displaying and what we were showing, that's some of the things we wanted to make reference to the Hec-22 inlets that are in InfoDrainage, and clearly there are ones that are in Civil 3D although the capabilities are a little bit different. Misty, are we still there? Oh,
Hey, I'm still here. Yeah, we're right at the 5 minute mark to the hour. I don't see any questions in the live chat, but I did put our email, webinars@graitec.com. If you guys do think of any questions after the webinar, you can absolutely submit them in there. I'll get you connected with the right person, which is probably our expert Ken, with the right answers. All right, all right. Do you have any final things you want to say, Ken, to wrap us up?
There are several classes from Autodesk that I did with InfoDrainage. There are several other classes in reference to the Autodesk InfoWater Pro in terms of steady state fire analysis. So some different things. And then there are some classes to come in reference to what I will be doing, if chosen. But from anything in terms of stormwater management, storm sewer design, detention ponds, stormwater controls of any type, land usage, soil types, modifying, averaging out your different catchment areas, all that can be done with InfoDrainage.
I love it. You are the expert of everything, Ken. And guys, by the way, he has a significant on-demand library on our website. He is the king of civil. And hopefully you'll see us again at AU with Ken representing as well. But since there aren't any questions, I did throw up on the screen here. You can click if you're interested in setting up some training with Ken. And also, I wanted to thank you all for joining us today. So I hope it was meaningful and impactful for you and your businesses. And Ken, as always, it's been such a joy, and I really appreciate you joining us today as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.